Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining the webinar. We are going to get started in just 1 minute and allow people to keep logging in. Just a quick reminder, we'll be sending everybody the recording after the webinar. We're super excited to get started here at the top of the hour. Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining Rethinking Your Business Strategy with Talent Optimization. We're so excited to have you all here today to talk about this important topic. We encourage you to tweet throughout the webinar using hashtag talent optimization. Feel free to take notes, but we'll be sending you the recording after the session today. So we got you covered there. We'll also be taking questions at the end for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on time. So be sure to enter any question that you have into the Q&A box. I will be monitoring those throughout the session. My name is Alicia Garibaldi. I head up content over at Lever, but I'm so excited to introduce you to our panel and our fantastic moderator, Mike, to get started.
Thanks so much, Alicia. So just to get us kicked off here, my name is Mike Fitzsimmons. I am the CEO of Crosschq. Crosschq is a startup backed by GGV Capital, Bessemer, and Slack that's working to kind of make the world build greater companies by making better hires. That's our focus. So I'm super excited to host the panel today. Many friends, customers, partners participating in the panel and attending the webinar. So super psyched to be here. One note before I turn it over to JD for his introduction, I will do my best to speak as little as possible so you can hear from all of these guys. And if you catch me talking too much, I'm sure, Alicia, you'll send me the signal to shut up. So with that said, turn it over to JD and we'll go around the room for introductions.
Thanks so much, Mike. I'm JD Conway, Head of Talent Acquisition over at BambooHR. For anybody who doesn't know, BambooHR is an all-in-one HRIS solution and an HR management system geared to small and medium-sized businesses. And one of the things that I've loved about Bamboo and being a part of webinars like this is I'm really passionate about organizational health and development, recruitment marketing, and employer branding. And I'm really trying to strive to use my expertise to help companies change the very way they look at talent acquisition. So this is why webinars like this, I'm very passionate about. It says a lot about you that you've taken an extra hour of your time to listen to this. It tells us a lot about how you view your profession. So I tip my hat to you, proverbially speaking. My background is mainly in executive outplacement, starting about 20 years ago, and then the last 13 years, predominantly in talent acquisition, in high growth SaaS companies and as a third-party recruiter in the past. So that's me. Excited to be here.
Great. That was a great introduction, JD. I'll try and follow it up and do just as good as you did. My name is Jackie Dube, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Talent Optimization at the Predictive Index. PI is a company that works with organizations to tie their talent strategy with their business strategy to achieve their optimal business results. I'm super excited to be here today to share with you how at the Predictive Index we shifted fairly quickly our strategy and talent strategy to this changing environment with coronavirus. And we've successfully pivoted. I'm very excited to share that with you. I've been in the HR space for over 20 years, spent the last 15 years working in high growth companies, building, managing teams, and hiring quite rapidly. So really excited to share those experiences with you.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. Hi, everybody. My name is James Parker, and I'm a Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition at Glassdoor, or as you may know us by Glassdoor. And talent optimization is a solution or strategy that I believe everybody should be using regularly. And specifically right now, something that is close to home at Glassdoor as our company and TA teams are practicing agility and resilience right now. And we'll talk more about that later on. And more than anything, I'm really excited to be talking with other industry experts on the webinar today and hopefully walk away with some tidbits myself. So thank you.
Great, thanks, James. I am Carolyn Fleming, the founder and CEO of Beth's, and I'm super passionate about this. I've been in recruitment and recruitment/HR tech for about 16 years. I've ran Beth's for 10, and we recently, relatively recently, launched our technology platform, Beth's Connect, which is a go-to-market hiring platform, talent platform, and we recently partnered with Lever as well. And I'm very passionate about building teams, helping people grow their careers, and just developing talent overall. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. So just as we dive in here, big shout out to the team at Lever for putting this whole thing together. So thank you on behalf of all of us and all the attendees for organizing us today. I did just kind of want to start by emphasizing that, you know, as a talent community, in light of our current circumstances, I think what's really cool is that we're all kind of locking arms to take on these headwinds directly. And that really is the theme of this discussion, which is just open sharing so we can all learn from each other, collaborate, you know, build solutions together so we come out of the other side of this experience even better than we were before. And I think that's a very genuine thing shared by all of us on the panel, and hopefully we can deliver some real value to the audience as it relates to achieving that outcome. So that said, you know, what are we here to talk about? We really want to focus on this concept of talent optimization and how optimizing talent can help us lead to better results in our companies. Thanks to our panelists from Predictive Index, they shared one of their recent reports that showed us that companies that focus on talent optimization are 22% more effective in achieving their strategic initiatives than companies that are not. So I think that is really our goal today, is to kind of go on a journey, figure out what this means, figure out how to make it happen in our organizations, and ultimately plow through the headwinds that we're all sharing. So turn this over to Alicia just to walk you through what will be happening concurrent with the webinar as it relates to our interactive polls, and then we'll get right into the expert panel.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to launch our first poll to the audience because we want to hear from you before we open it up to our panel. How has your team started to think about talent optimization in light of COVID-19? There's 3 responses. If you can go ahead and submit your response. Awesome.
All right, are we good to go here, Alicia, or do I hold?
This is great. I see a lot of people still entering their response. Looks like we're almost there. Want to make sure I give the most accurate. There we go. I think we're good. Let me show everybody what the results were. So it looks like for the first option, our teams haven't had the bandwidth to think about talent optimization. There's about 25% there. I'm just starting to think about talent optimization. 25% responded there. And I'm in the process of rethinking and evaluating our talent optimization. So you're in the right place. I'll hand it back over to you, Mike.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm psyched that the third one is what it is. We've caught everybody at the right time. So let's get on with it. So there's sort of 3 things that we laid out to cover today, or 3 steps, if you will, or phases, or sort of components to today's discussion. And we almost followed our hiring funnel from, all right, what are we doing at the top in terms of rethinking how we hire? How are we designing new strategies once we hire? And then how are we inspiring our workforces to help plow through the current market conditions? So we're really going to dive in and talk about rethinking hiring as our starting point. I don't want to read these. You guys take a moment to read these 6 kind of best practices that the expert team on the conference today had laid out. And as you're digesting them, I'll just kind of give you a couple of voiceovers local to my experience at Crosschq. So we have a wide variety of customers in our portfolio. And what's been fascinating is about 54% of our customers continue to hire aggressively and are overwhelmed with new job applicants in this new market. some of the companies centered in technology and healthcare, pockets of gig economy. Conversely, almost half of our customers are in sectors that are hit harder by the pandemic, and they've paused hiring altogether. They've had layoffs. They've gone through complete reboots. So it is, a big part of the challenge now is companies are on all kinds of sides of this equation. And what we really want to do is dive in and see how our expert panelists are reacting to these varying situations. So let's start with our first question for the panelists, which is really, how has pipeline management and team structure changed for your recruiting teams? I think we're going to kick it over to Carolyn to get us started here.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. And, it's interesting because at Bets, we've seen a lot of the same stuff that you guys have seen at Crosschq. And I think we have many mutual customers. And, it's interesting to see the difference of, what's going on with the companies that have, continued to grow versus those that are more stagnant during this time. And what I've really seen is for the majority of our customers that are continuing to grow and hire, and we specialize in just revenue. So that is the glimpse of the lens that I see. So sales, marketing, customer success, there is a lot more happening on the higher level, more strategic hires than there are in more of the volume hiring that we saw before. However, in April was incredibly slow. We saw a massive dip, but May has things have really started ramping up, and at all levels. Like people are opening up opening up and starting to recruit for some of these revenue roles, even at the lower levels. And so, but pipeline is crazy, right? There's so many more candidates on the market. People are really having a lot of challenges trying to sift through the various different, and there's a lot of great talent. So that's what we've been seeing out there.
That's awesome. And James, for you guys at Glassdoor, what are you experiencing?
Yeah, so to answer your question on kind of unpack both sides. So restructuring the team specifically, obviously, in light of the global impact of COVID-19, our structures and responsibilities have changed quite a bit at Glassdoor. So the first thing we did was reprioritize our recs, and as a result of that, about half of our recruiting team is still actively recruiting for high priority positions right now. And then the other half, we're now utilizing their skills to support different projects and kind of work on different things, which I know we'll get to later on in this discussion. And some of these projects actually fall within talent acquisition, which is great. And then some of these projects don't. We have recruiters who are currently supporting product teams, learning and development, payroll, benefits, marketing, and many more other groups. So, and then typically for us as well, like specific to recruiting, making wholesale type changes, these big process changes, is something that's difficult to do when the recruiting machine is running at full capacity. So in light of half of our team not recruiting right now, we've really started to strip back process and poke holes at things and ask questions and understand the why. Like, why do we do things this way? And like, because we've always done it this way isn't good enough. Like, let's really unpack that. So for us, it's been, once again, wanting to be world-class at our process and understanding that. And then on the other side, last thing for the structure, our team is working on the recruiting side a lot more flat than before. So instead of being very specialized and siloed into one area of recruiting, we have people working on projects, and a lot of different individuals are leading projects or are leading certain workflows within projects, and we're very much working closely aligned in a flat model right now, just because we were all being asked to wear so many hats, and it just makes sense to work that way. And then quickly on the pipeline side, for the roles where we have an influx of candidates, we've moved whatever the highest drop-off point is in the pipeline process earlier on. So if that's a sales role, and for example, it's some type of pitch or assignment, we're moving that up just because we need to know out of this like vast majority of candidates who's actually equipped to do the role sooner, just because our poor recruiters are doing so many phone screens right now to get through that influx of available talent. So that was a pro tip that we've added. And then adding empathy to everything we do is another thing that we've started really making sure. When you can connect with a candidate, give them a call instead of just sending a generic email. Another thing we're doing is in the process itself, we can't do on-site lunches anymore. So these individuals are going through the process and aren't taking home those data points or feelings or experiences that they would from an on-site interview. So now we're doing like little mini touch points with cross-functional team members as part of the interview process. We're doing a quick recruiter meet and greet at the beginning to make sure like the technology is working and they kind of have the nerves and can have a bit of a conversation. We have a recruiter wrap up at the end to tie a nice bow on everything. So still having a phenomenal experience, even though it's 100% remote and virtual right now, is something that we've really dug into, and we can obviously talk more about that later on. So yeah, those are just some of the things that we're doing right now.
Yeah, just those. That's awesome. That's a big list for all of us. We got a lot to unpack. JD, I know you guys have been doing some pretty fascinating things at Bamboo.
Yeah, actually, it's I love the comments and the findings from Carolyn and some of the things that James has done. Our team has been doing some similar actions. I think one key for us is that in designing our talent acquisition function over here, maybe we'll get a chance to talk more on that later today, but in designing our entire function, we've built things for pivotability, knowing that there's going to be up and down markets. So to anybody viewing this webinar, I hope you think about the future, that you're going to have up markets and down markets, and how can you diversify skill sets in advance to prepare ahead for these times. It's hard when you're looking retrospective. It's hard to do at the moment. If you have time now, I hope you take the time, if you can, to really think about diversification of skill sets and allocation of time. We've spent more of our time, we've distributed out our requisitions a little bit more, and then we've spent more of our time working on programs that were already built and in place. Each member of our team was a dedicated owner of a program, much like a product manager. And now we quickly moved to a sprint on those, like, oh, we can get so much more done, where usually we only have about 2 to 4 hours a week that can be allocated to these programs. Now we can get 20, maybe 30. And so we're able to really build and develop now and take it to the next innovation point in this quiet time and still bring a lot of value to the company at the same time. One of the other, I think, key points is what we've done is we have prepared for a crouch, preparing everything for a good crouch position for our high volume. Much like Carolyn said, some things are picking up. We know that some things are going to change. They might pick up faster or slower. So we've prepared for the crouch position. If anybody looks at our careers page, we have general applications by departments and division, knowing that we want to be the first ones to contact these people when it's time. And we want to be the first. Everyone else is, there's several other maybe local competitors that might be hiring for the same things around the same time. Well, we want to be able to bring these people up out of maybe a rough situation. Maybe they're on unemployment, or maybe it's just a harder job market for them. We want to be able to act fast, both for Bamboo and for them. So we've prepared a lot of very particular things to get us in a good crouch position and ready to launch at a moment's notice.
Are you starting conversations with any of those people, or just kind of, yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, great question. For the general application, what we tried to do is make it very specific and have a lot of our messaging right there. We also have some video tools that we're embedding into emails. So that way we can just give notifications and say, hey, it's mainly about setting the right expectations, right? What are the expectations for this general application? When can we contact you? So we have been able to set up something where we can contact, hey, we haven't heard anything, any updates recently. If you're still interested in this, we will keep you in the hunt. And thank you so much for your interest in Bamboo. It's all really about how we're communicating and treating them. So great follow-up, Carolyn. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I love it. The crouch position. We all need to maintain it. That's awesome. All right, let's keep jamming here and kind of move on to step 2. And step 2 is really around this idea of how do we design new strategies in order to embrace these new challenges. And I think, we're all seeing varying data and reports and talking to our own team members and whatnot. Some of the statistics that are coming at us, 90% of employees think they're more productive now that they're working remotely. It's crazy, right, to process tectonic overnight shifts in how we work with our talent optimization strategies. we're all human. We're all doing the best we can, dealing with data the best way we can. So I think that's the next big question for us, is how do we think about making changes, or responsibly making changes for today that are going to last for the long term. So with that, I want to kind of turn this over to Jackie from Predictive Index. And their business is built on doing this for organizations, so no better guide for us here, just to help us organize our approach to building out our strategies here. So Jackie, if you want to kind of take this slide, that would be great.
Great, thanks so much. So if you haven't seen this before, this slide is really the framework for talent optimization. And what you're looking at is, from the left side to the right, is that every company has a business strategy, or most companies have a business strategy and a financial strategy. And they put those strategies in place, hoping to get some results, revenue, etc. But in the middle is really about the talent strategy, and that's really what we're talking about today. And so how do you keep your talent strategy aligned with your business strategy so you can deliver those results? And there's 4 disciplines of talent optimization, and depending on where you are and what the current environment is, you might be focusing on one of those disciplines at a different time. So there's hire, so ensuring that you're hiring the right people for your team using data. How do you inspire those folks? Are you designing teams, leadership capabilities, etc.? And then continually diagnosing your team, understanding, are your employees productive? Are they engaged? And then kind of rinse and repeat. And if you think about talent optimization in this new crisis, so many companies have shifted. So for example, just to give you where Predictive Index was, the beginning of 2020, we were on high growth, go-to-market strategy, very focused on building revenue. And we were going to need to do that quickly. So we were hiring, had a plan to hire 100 people. We were designing what those teams would look like. And then, literally March 1st, we went and said, okay, we're not going to be hiring all those people. Our business has changed. We had to take a step back and say, okay, how is our business changed, and how is that going to affect talent? So our strategy changed to more internal focused, more around product and service and retention. And what did that mean for our teams? How are we going to inspire them now that they're remote? And individually, for those people that are driven by either energy or by working with other people. And interestingly, at that time, we were in the middle of an engagement survey. So that closed right on March 15th. And so we're actually rerunning it now to see, we actually went through a reduction in force. So how are our employees doing that now that we've shifted? People have changed jobs. And so continuing to look at that process is really how the framework of talent optimization works.
And Jackie, how much has that evolved from, March 15th to April 15th to May 15th? And how have you tactically dealt with that evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot of work on aligning the leaders of your organization on what you're trying to achieve. So we actually, this year, had a huge kickoff for our goals for 2020. We actually had coins printed. So we actually had to really shift and figure out how we're going to rally the organization. And so once we knew the parts of our business that we're going to change, so for example, on-site training, a big part of our product offering is in hire. So really taking a proactive approach to shift that, and then aligning our management team. And actually within the Predictive Index product suite, there's a strategy assessment. So our team went through another alignment session of, okay, how are we, what's our important things that we need to focus on now, and how is our team aligned to that? And so our team is very innovative, exploring, and we were moving to this more producing strategy. And so we really we went through a session to pinpoint what we were going to have to change about the way that we lead the business, because our go-to is to innovate. Like our back of t-shirt or skeleton in the closet is we don't finish things to done, and we continue to move on and innovate. And we know that in this new environment, we have to hold ourselves accountable to finishing and putting more process and structure in place, because that's what our team needed, especially in this new environment, that we needed to ensure that we were we were communicating, giving structure and process to the team so they could stay engaged, productive, and aligned on our new strategy. So it's a work in progress. It's not a one and done. And you just got to continue to work on it.
It does strike me that you're probably thankful that a product like yours exists in the market to help your own company navigate the market. I can't think of a more important tool than a predictive index type of tool to help make sure you're getting through all this stuff. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really helpful.
So I think, Carolyn, you had some thoughts or specific examples on how Beth's has, adjusted strategy and what your approach has been.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of us are seeing the same things, and obviously recruitment took a huge hit. Most companies, or a lot of companies, paused hiring, and we also did a reduction in force. However, we still had some companies hiring, but then what are we going to do with the rest of our team members that we want to keep on, because we definitely see this coming back at some point, and we have to be ready to go when our customers and other companies are coming back. And so we also have been very, very, very much focused on process and on training, right? And on up leveling our existing people and trying to teach them new skills. I mentioned our strategic business, our transactional, more AESCR, was definitely most affected, and a lot of our strategic business was doubling down on trying to get these types of hires that are definitely needed to do things like build process, et cetera, within the organizations. And so we've up-leveled our teams as well to be able to impact on those. And then also, this also came as the time that we've been launching our Bets Connect platform. And so, deploying more resources onto that team, working with the workforce out there that has been laid off, getting them onto the platform. Also, JD, very similar to what you're doing. We did an NPS survey, I'm not sure if it's gone out yet, but we want to make sure that these folks that are looking for jobs understand that in a lot of these roles, the volume is not out there, but it will be, and we want to get them ready to go and at least start having some conversations with the companies that are hiring without over-promising that the market's super hot right now, because it's not, right? And so, that's also what we've been doing is, kind of moving our key players around, giving them additional skills. And then we've also brought on some strategic people to help us, a couple people from Hired, a new demand generation person, and some sales ops people to get our company in a better position. Because I'm not a process person. James, when I was listening to all the things that you're doing, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy, because, I was a recruiter turned CEO. So I've been bringing in people to help us with process. So James, if you ever need a new job, come on over.
No, that's awesome. And just out of curiosity on the effort to up level, have you sort of had your pick of the litter from a talent perspective? Has it been unlike anything you've seen?
Well, it's crazy. And I tell myself, I'm like, had this not happened, I don't think internally we would have had access to the same talent as we have now to help us take the company to the next level. And, like one of the guys that we hired from Hired had 2 offers that he had got rescinded during the beginning of this, right? So he had to start from scratch when he thought he had already started, So anyway, like going way into the weeds, but there's a lot of really amazing talent on the market right now. And I think those that are looking strategically at how to, obviously optimize your current workforce, but, post-COVID and pre-COVID, the types of talent needed at the levels and the volume is just going to be a little bit different, in my opinion.
Very cool. So that's a good setup for the question here in terms of have you thought through talent optimization to support the new needs of the business? And I think this one's coming back to you, James. I know you laid out a bunch of stuff on the prior topic, but maybe we go a little bit deeper specifically.
Yeah,
this
no,
piece.
fantastic. So one of the biggest things we did upfront as the leadership team within talent acquisition and our senior leadership team at Glassdoor in general was looking at our recruiters beyond just the recs that they fill, and actually looking at their soft and hard skills and then trying to align those around different business needs and some of the projects or programs that I alluded to earlier. So straightforward example that actually came to life about a week ago was, if you think about recruiters, right, they're good at asking questions. You do a kickoff call with the hiring manager to understand their needs. You are interviewing candidates to understand their skill set and ultimately finding a solution to the business need. So we think of that, and now we're like, we have all these other projects that we are in the discovery phase of. So the new project that I mentioned was a manager toolbox that we're building for all of our people managers. So it's in time or on time kind of trainings for them as they navigate being a people manager. And who better to go and find out what the needs are of the people managers at Glassdoor and find the solutions and bring that all together than the recruiters who do that in their skill set day in, day out when they're traditionally recruiting. So that was just a very straightforward boom. Instead of having other people do that, let's have the recruiters run the discovery for these projects. And then something else that plays into that crouching mentality that I love so much that was referenced earlier. So one of our recruiters recently started specializing in employer branding. So obviously, if you have roles, employer branding now more than ever probably plays one of the biggest kind of impacts on that, because these candidates are wanting to learn about you, know more about you. And like I said earlier, they don't have access to all the data points they would have from a traditional on-site. So your employer branding is going to be more meaningful. And if you're not hiring, the employer brand you have today is going to impact your hiring tomorrow. And if you're starting to think about employer branding, once all your recs open up and it's mayhem, it's not going to happen and you're going to be way behind. So even if that's just really thinking about what are the internal values of our company and how do we think about externally communicating them, even small things like that will move the needle in a major way, given the climate that we're in right now.
You guys have some very unique data at Glassdoor just because of how close you are to job postings, generally speaking. And we're just curious, what have you seen in terms of the trends over the last 90 days, more macro, that you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, so this has already been mentioned a couple of times, but those, I'd say more strategic, higher level positions, the roles that are priority are even more priority right now. And then also there's a potential opportunity for more candidates to be available given different reductions in forces at different companies. So those types of roles, companies are doubling down on and putting a lot of budget behind display advertising, boosting job postings, and really finding those critical people, because those people are going to be integral in rolling out the plans that will exist beyond COVID-19, right? And then similar to Carolyn earlier, it's the sales development, account executives, those types of roles, I would say specifically within the SMB or small medium business space, those types of positions are definitely having a downtick right now, just because there isn't that much budget out there for people to buy. So a lot of your not kind of core purchases are sitting on the sideline for a little bit.
Got it. All right, JD, we're coming.
Crouching tiger.
Well, again, I love so many of the insights that are being shared right now, because there's a lot of takeaways that people can go implement right after this webinar. As far as some of the things that we've seen in the market, I've been reading quite a lot and have felt and experienced that hiring for IT or other technical positions has remained relatively unchanged. I've been seeing that the last several weeks in a lot of articles and a lot of research. And I think it's more of just a suppression of the overall cage fight between employers that was going on previous to this. So it's still, it's worthwhile to look at this macro information. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, to really understand what's going on right now and what could that mean quickly for the future as far as compensation. And as far as how we've thought through talent optimization to look at the new business needs, I think it's important, and I really hope those who are part of the webinar today are thinking about building something now that will allow for greater pivotability and optimization down the road. Our talent acquisition team, it's hard because we would have the longest title in the world if it actually reflected what we built and what we do. And back to James's point on silos, we designed it in such a way to avoid silos. Every talent acquisition partner at BambooHR is responsible for their own workforce planning initiatives, forecasting in that regard, compensation analysis. They handle, or they help a lot with pre-onboarding and onboarding. They do their own marketing, right? Their own recruitment marketing efforts. And we did that in an effort to cross-train, to skill up generally, so that way they could have more mobility and pivotability and focus on the right things at the right times. In fact, one of our core functions, another shout out to Carolyn and James's comment before. No, one of their core functions actually is listed as being a process engineer. That consistently they are analyzing the value and the cost per hire and what is optimal as far as interview steps. Where's the best point? Where's the best place to have screening out steps and screening in steps? And how do we do that based on each candidate persona? Are they doing candidate persona analyses? So I feel like maybe they're distraught because the work is endless here, but at the same time, it really builds a lot of optimization in there. So if anybody listening to this webinar is thinking about what you can do, I highly recommend that, as they were talking about breaking down those silos and thinking about how to upskill in those particular areas. And the last point I'll bring up is we have a nuclear option at Bamboo as well, which is, okay, the talent acquisition team, time is the biggest factor for us. So we, on a regular basis, have a cap of 5 requisitions per recruiter or talent acquisition partner to allow for time for them to really get to know the teams that they hire for and build skill sets that relate to that team. So I've told them, you need to build a skill set to allow you to be basically an entry-level person on that team. And what does that mean? And in a nuclear option, if it gets really rough over here or something like that, they're able to actually spend time maybe doing graphic design with the graphic design team, and maybe doing some light level coding and pulling a weight off of that current team, which again saves time and funds and crosses over on skill sets there and allows them to be better recruiters either way. So,
and can I add something to that? Because I love that idea. If a recruiter is supporting, I don't know, compensation or benefits and hiring for the team, now they don't have roles, but they're able to support compensation and benefits through some other strategic projects, when they go back to actually recruiting for the team, their ability to recruit is going to be so much better, because now they have real experience, not theoretical examples to give to a candidate. Like, they can talk about things that are on the roadmap for that team. And I think that'll only strengthen that partnership post COVID-19.
Yeah, I think between both, James, both of you guys, in terms of your feedback on the concept of pivotability, and even you taking people from TA on the product team, right? It has been fascinating to me to observe how, when we challenge our talent, how wonderfully we respond, right? And how capable we are of doing things that maybe we would have never had the opportunity to do if it weren't for this type of experience. So that pivotability concept is I'm taking that with me, JD. So love it. Maybe back to Jackie just to wrap us on this, because I know you got us kicked off. Any other thoughts for us before we move on?
No, I love that James and JD are talking about ways to literally optimize your talent and use them cross-functionally in your business. You've hired smart people who are versatile, who fit within your culture, and just because the job to be done might change, there's definitely other ways to exert value from them. So I think those are great examples of how you can really use the people that you have.
Awesome. All right, we're going to keep rolling here and kind of move on to the next part around the how do we make this all a reality, and how do we actually inspire our teams to get this work done, as we're asking them to do different things, and there's unknowns in the economy and all the stuff that we're all way too aware of. I think to kick this section off, our team had talked, and these were a few things that were very important just to me and my leadership style, and I think shared by the group. First we talk about how important it is to communicate, and we sort of say like over communicate. Internally and externally, good and bad, hide nothing, get it all out there. Like, that's just a keystone, especially in a situation like this. That The second thing we all sort of held hands on was the idea to be intentional. So let's make sure we say what we're going to do and let's do it. And just because we're in challenging times doesn't mean we're not accountable. We're accountable. Our teams are still accountable. There's a standard of accountability, but we need to be intentional with how we establish that accountability. And then the third piece was around this concept of not making assumptions. I think there's too many unknowns. I think we all can flip different channels on our television and hear 3 different stories about what's happening in the world around us. To the extent that we can rely on data, to the extent that we can do our homework, we can leverage our own networks, whether that's our customers, our partners, our investors, to gain valuable market intelligence. We really do have to work at that, right? And we all have to collectively take that responsibility seriously, so we can communicate intentionally and do it with data. So with that as kind of a backdrop, let's kind of take this back to the experts and ask the question around, okay, what are you changing within your organizations beyond your usual OKRs? How are you changing processes to communicate and inspire your teams? And I think we've covered on some of this throughout, but if we can kind of drill down a little bit more focus, that would be awesome. And I think in the batter's box, JD, it's back coming to you.
Sure. Well, I'll just list a few things that we recently did very, very swiftly here. We quickly made a task force for communications to ensure that we were communicating to all new hires, to all people currently in a pipeline, everything like that. Several members of our team got together with our HR leadership, and they meet weekly to ensure that we're communicating the right things in the right places on a regular, almost an inventory. And as far as listening to our tool, BambooHR has, and Carolyn mentioned NPS, we have an NPS part of our tool to get a pulse for how people are feeling. But you really need fast, real-time information that is very personalized in a lot of ways. So our leadership chose to ensure that each team had a daily stand-up. And right off the bat, a couple of the questions had to do with, you always ask, how is everyone doing? And you have to start building, just like you talked about, Mike, this transparent culture within your teams of, hey, we actually genuinely care enough about each other to be able to be open about things we're having a hard time with. Hey, I'm having a hard time with being around the family constantly, or have loved ones that are ill right now, or people I'm worried about. It's okay to share and talk about these things, and ideally should be encouraged in that way. And so we quickly made a daily stand-up for that purpose, and also to share a lot of good news, good things that are actually happening. And as far as listening to, it really has to be, you could look at macro across the company. That's absolutely always helpful, but ideally it's coming in a much more micro-focused group, team size, individual size, and reporting that up and making sure people are feeling heard and taken care of.
That's awesome. And Jackie, to you, how's the team at Predictive Index managing communication?
Yeah, it was interesting. When we went fully remote, I think on March 13th was our test day, and we ended up on March 12th going fully remote. So we didn't really get to test it. And we had about 25 folks that were already remote, and they had a Slack channel that they communicated on. And so because we have such a collaborative and good culture, it almost was too much coming of, this is a good way to structure your day, or this is how to be remote. And so we actually had to organize all of the communication so people weren't getting overwhelmed with how to structure their days. But we have found there's so much technology out there. So some things that we use is we have a pulse survey on Slack that, there's a bot on Slack that just checks in with everyone twice a week. And we have a whole dashboard all employees can see, and it measures 5 different domains. We also host a Friday TV. So we call it PI TV, where the leadership team gets on and we take anonymous questions, any question that wants to be asked, and we answer them. First they were about, are we doing reduction in force? And then it was more about product. And now it's like, are we going back to the office? And then during the PITV, we also use Menti polls. So there's a free service out there, Mentimeter, where you can do live polls. So we ask how people are feeling. We decided actually today, we rolled out at our all company meeting that we're postponing back to work. And so we quickly asked, like, what do you think about this decision? Or I should say back to office, we're still working. But, and immediately we were able to tell, like, did our employees think that was the right decision or not? Because, you know, they asked the question or not, so we make assumptions they want to go back, but we realized no one's ready to go back. So we were thankful we made the right decision. We also did a lot of things to structure days because there's so many meetings now that you don't get the drive-bys. So we implemented no meeting zones. So at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 2:30, there's breaks where no one can have meetings. They can feel free to go manage their children if they have them, walk their dog, go for a walk, just check out or do work. But those are no meeting zones for anyone in the company, which has been really helpful. And then we also, you know, scheduled stand-ups and so forth for communication. So there's many different things that we do, and you know, keeping the constant pulse and letting people know that they're probably going to be at different places at different times. So those personal check-ins are so important. Just, you know, how are you doing today? Because today could be very different than tomorrow. And so we do ask everyone to have a buddy, make sure someone's being checked in on, and having a buddy system. So, I mean, I could go on for days. There's so many
awesome.
that we do, but you know, really, I think, you know, JD hit it right. It's those interactions, noticing if someone's acting differently, giving them the space. We know people are kind of burnt out. So we closed the office this Friday, a surprise, for an extended Memorial Day weekend. So anything that you can do to, like, keep people energized and working, because it's hard, and acknowledging it's hard, I think is how we're working it.
How many employees do both you guys have in your companies? Just curious to understand the scale.
Sure. So currently we have about 160.
Bamboo's right at about 600.
Well, Carolyn, that question doesn't get you off the hook for your response to the expert discussion.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to come in, but no, it just is helpful to understand the scale, because, you know, we're doing a lot of the same things. We have 78 people in our company right now, and so I think it's a much more manageable number with less process, I guess, in place. But we put in a lot of stuff like Wellness Wednesdays. We have everyone, you know, from 4 on to just no meetings, no nothing, and go do something for yourself. We also did Friday off. We have weekly all hands, and all the individual managers have a really good, I also downgraded or I put in another leadership structure. So I used to have all of our MDs report directly to me of our different offices in New York, Chicago, Austin, LA, and San Francisco. And what I did was I put a head of the East and a head of the West. And so then people feel more comfortable voicing any concerns to these people. And then, you know, so it's a lot more, there is the whole top down, but I've been coaching each one of the leaders individually to be getting pulse checks on how people are feeling. And then we're also going to be rolling out a engagement survey along with getting feedback on what do people want, right? Do they want to continue to work remotely? Do they want to come back into the office? Do they want to have a hybrid? Along with how people are doing overall, and what else they'd like to see from us. And so, you know, any like actual surveys, Jackie, that I just wrote this down, like anything that you've done with your team, it would be really helpful to see, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel over here. But yeah, and you know, we have a lot of really young people that live in these big cities, and so definitely having also lunch and learns. So, you know, I have a big network of a lot of CEOs and people I know just from over the years. So we have been focusing the last couple, so we have mental health lunch and learns coming up, but we've also really leveraged our network to be educating our team on lots of stuff. So really, optimizing the fact that everyone's kind of from home now, and people that would probably have never said yes to speak to our team are, ready and willing to drop some knowledge. So that's been a lot of fun. And I love hearing all these ideas. We, happy hours, game nights, things like that too, just to bring a little bit of fun into the mix.
That is awesome. I know, James, you weren't on the list here, but I feel like it would be remiss if the company that invented radical listening to your workforce didn't chime in on this. Can you tell us anything from Glassdoor that you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you've got to do is not assume that you know how everybody's feeling and what they need. So you need to be doing pulse checks. We do pulse checks pretty frequently to see and measure how people are perceiving their own productivity. So how productive do you feel? And what are ways that could be kind of increased, or what support mechanisms do you need? Something that has come up a lot is just self-care in general. So it's, for us, we're playing around with ideas like, do we block off certain times on different days for self-care? Or is it like take an afternoon or take a day once in a while? Like, what does that mean, and how do we do it? And how do you roll it out company-wide, so that, because it's difficult, like for me, it's like, if I'm going to leave now, I know I'm going to get slacks and emails and projects are going to be paused. So it's like, how do you do it in a way that a whole team collectively can align around it, so that nobody feels guilty by just like taking some me time? So that for us has been huge. It's just truly listening. And then Carolyn, I love that as well. It's the idea of having your leaders really lead from the top and lead once again with empathy. I think with everything you do, it's just, how do other people feel about this, and how can I give them a message that shows that we're listening and we're wanting to respond. So we're monitoring obviously our own reviews on Glassdoor. Like, be foolish not to if you're not looking at that. And then we have our internal surveys as well. And then also the leadership teams collectively, like I said earlier, are a lot more flat. So all of our leaders in Chicago, for example, in a Slack channel, it's like, this is coming up, what did I do here? Or here's an idea, or somebody brought this up. And we're just like really kind of having that village mentality of, we'll do this together, because no single person on their own is going to be able to come up with the right answers to the right questions.
That is awesome. And I know I'm pacing below plan. I will pick up the pace here, Alicia, I promise. Let's get to some key takeaways. And look, there was so much great content here today that it's always hard to get these right in advance. And so I think we could write, pages on some of the key takeaways. I do think, the idea of, let's make sure we're building strategies today that are critical and scalable and build muscle for the future. I think we've all kind of heard that. I love the concept of the pivotability and how our organizations will be more nimble and reactive going forward. The idea around installing the right metrics and tracking to ensure that our strategy lines up with our business outcomes, obviously critical, and how PI is sort of helping teach us to do that. Inspiring our team, some killer ideas on there. I love just the fundamental idea of how we can use technology and how we can use Slack and how we can use all these tools that we have now to better communicate with and inspire our teams. It's so real, and we're fortunate to have those tools at our disposal when confronting what we're up against. And then lastly, this leading with humility. I think this is, you just said it, we've all hopefully emphasized it, that look, none of us are experts in pandemic management. This is new for all of us, right? We're all doing the best we can. We're all human, and I think that's the key thing. And as much as our teams understand that we're all doing the best that we can, I believe that's a necessity to plow through it. So we're going to turn it over to some questions here, but I've got one last quote that I just wanted to put up on the slide, and this came from one of my board members, a gentleman named Rusty Roof, who I have a mentor and a board member of mine, and he said this to me on like week 2 when all this kicked in, and his comment was, what began as a workaround became the way we worked. And I put this up on my little home office wall, and I look at it every single day, and I think it's such a powerful thing to think about as we are all confronting this, that these little workarounds, they're becoming how we work. So I just thought it would be cool to leave it with everybody as we get into the open questions, as we have more ideas to define the way we work. We lock arms, we kind of blaze our new trail for the future, because I do believe there's some really cool things happening and some cool innovation happening, and we're all doing some great stuff. So with that, let me kick it back to Alicia, and I will stop talking.
Thank you, Mike. I love Rusty. He's amazing. That's an awesome quote from him on that last slide. I just want to take the time to thank every partner on this webinar today: Lever, BambooHR, Predictive Index, Crosschq, Bets Connect, and Glassdoor. There's obviously resources at all of these companies to both help with hiring, productivity, and ensuring that employees are well taken care of during this time. So I encourage you all to check them out. We're actually going to launch our next poll. And if you would like to opt in to talking to all of these companies, we're going to be selecting somebody at random for a $50 Amazon gift card during this time. So I'll launch the poll now. I'll keep it up for our first question. We got so many on this webinar today, so we're going to see how many we get through. These results won't be shared, so we'll hook you up with the right person after the session so that you can learn more. So first question, there was so much on pulse surveys to both Jackie and also James, and I open it up to the panel about this. How are you keeping a pulse on your employees during this time? And this one's for Jackie. Are there 5 domains that you focus on most? And also James, like where are you looking to keep a pulse check over at Glassdoor? So I'll hand it over to you two first, and if others want to chime in, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. So I'll start. And so our pulse survey is through Slack, and it does measure 5 different domains. I'm going to hopefully remember them all now, but it's general morale, purpose, mastery, I think it's team, and now I'm going to forget the other one. So I apologize, but it just gives us a dashboard. You can go into any specific one of the domains to learn more about it. You can tag your different teams to see how each team is doing. And you can also put in events. So for example, we'll mark the day we went remote. We'll mark the day we did a reduction in force. We'll mark the day that we've had an all company, just to see if any of these things are, you know, having an impact on our employees' engagement and productivity. It's a very simple tool for Slack, and happy to share that information with anyone.
Yeah, copy paste, echo that. I would say the one thing maybe is just we have a specific question around productivity, and then also just support. And then it does have an open slot for individuals to obviously rate. We have a ranking that they can choose, and then also just open-ended, say what you want. And a lot of that was a qualitative feedback has been great. And ours is that the one that we use is Pulse by Glint right now. But yeah, we'd be interested in seeing how that Slack one looks too, because we do use Slack, and I think that would be an easy way to also push it out to our employees.
Yeah, the company is called Zeal, Z-E-A-L, that it comes through.
Awesome. Great advice on that one. I loved this question that I'm going to go to next. It was one of the first questions that we got, so I always love to honor those. This company is global, so they hire in about 22 different countries, and they want to ensure that they have a good hiring process when they're not a part of every hiring process across those 22 countries that they hire in. Are there any tips that our panel can give to kind of how to optimize the process when you can't always be there?
I think there's still very important principles in training. Now is a good time for training. And I think training the skill and the principle for it might be one of the most important things you can do. So with whoever is in charge of hiring in those particular countries and areas, identifying really what needs to happen every single time, what is malleable, how they can optimize themselves. I mean, we talked about helping people reskill. I would definitely focus, whoever asked that question, I would definitely focus your time on giving training to those people that are responsible for it. And then there's a lot of trust involved there. Trust and maybe a little bit of return back and let them know how you've optimized it and what you've done or what they have done, basically returning back and reporting on the optimization itself. And you kind of coach as you go. Trying to do it all at once would be really difficult in this scenario, it sounds like, but that's what I would recommend is teach on those principles, train them on what's malleable and what's not, and then allow them to come back and show you what they've done and keep tweaking as you go.
Absolutely, JD. I echo that. Collaboration is key. Using technology that allows you to move quickly and create a consistent process helps a ton. And training always. By the way, Jackie, I'm going to implement the no meeting zones. I thought that was amazing on the session. I'm going to end with this question because we only have a minute. Maybe each person on the panel can give an activity they would recommend if on hiring pause. So what could recruiters and talent acquisition, HR people leaders focus on most right now?
So I'll jump in. So for us, what we've done on our talent team, which I've heard a lot here, which gives me some great confidence that the recruiting experience from a candidate perspective will be so much better when coming again, because we're on our program. And, you know, for talent 2 months ago was a battle. And, you know, the processes are right, our people are trained, that our systems are set up to, you know, to attract talent on the back, right? And I had mentioned employer brand is key.
Amazing. We're at the hour, we're at 11, but I just want to thank Carolyn, James, Mike, Jackie, JD, rockstar panel today on talent optimization. I learned so much that I'm going to pass along to our teams here at Lever, and we just appreciate all your time today. So thank you. And thank you everybody for giving us an hour and tuning in, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.